আসসালামু আলাইকুম বন্ধুরা, আসুন আমরা একটা ভিডিও দেখি আগে, তারপরে আমরা এই বিষয়ে কথা বলবো। চলুন দেখা যাক। চলুন 1 2 3।
There have been whispers of Saudi Arabia distancing itself from the US. Call it a decoupling, if you will. Saudi Arabia is changing posture. It is already a major player in West Asia, but now Riyadh has global ambitions. It is diversifying its economy, opening up its society, pursuing an independent foreign policy that isn't hemmed in by American interests. And most importantly, Saudi Arabia is relegating religion to a more personal space, not making it the driver of their economic and foreign policy. The man leading the shift is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He floundered for a while with the war in Yemen and the Khashoggi episode. But he's no more the pariah. He's a central player who doesn't want to operate in the shadow of the US any longer. Let me explain this with a quick recap. Saudi Arabia and the US have been allies for as long as one can remember. It was a symbolic relationship. The Saudis gave the Americans oil and the Americans repaid with military protection. No lectures on democracy or religious freedom. Those America kept for the rest of the world. So Washington got a steady supply of oil and Riyadh built its petrodollar regime. The Saudis did not question America's military operations. But in 2018, this arrangement suffered a big jolt. A Saudi-American commentator, Jamal Khashoggi, was murdered, allegedly by the Saudi regime. The US took this up publicly and promised to turn Riyadh into a pariah. Saudi Arabia did not like America's tone. Listen in to what its minister said last year.
The idea that one can impose values on other countries, His Royal Highness made clear, it does not work. It has not worked when the US tried to impose values on Afghanistan and Iraq. In fact, it backfired. It does not work when people try to impose values by force on other countries.
Don't impose your values on us, said Saudi Arabia to the US. The US also refused to support their war in Yemen, the Saudi war in Yemen. The rift widened. Saudi Arabia found other willing partners like Russia and China. Russia is a big oil producer. It is part of the oil cartel called OPEC+. Last year, when America wanted the Saudis to dump Russia, they refused. Biden even traveled to the country he not very long ago called a pariah. But the Saudis did not budge. Meanwhile, China emerged as a big investor, also one that doesn't talk about democracy or human rights. Suits everyone. The Saudis conveniently shut their eyes to the plight of Muslims in China. Power politics, you see, is a game of convenience. So gradually, the US was edged out as the Russians and Chinese entered deeper into the fray. This is the decoupling with America. It's work in progress. And like we said, Saudi Arabia wants to be a global power. Its de facto ruler, the Crown Prince, has a vision. It's called Vision 2030. A plan to diversify the Saudi economy, make it less reliant on oil, more modern, more open. This week, the Saudis took the latest step to realize this vision. They've launched a new global airline. It's called Riyadh Air. It's meant to compete with the likes of Etihad, Emirates, and Qatar Airways. Crown Prince MBS has big plans. He wants to turn Saudi Arabia's strategic location into an asset. The kingdom is located between Asia, Africa, and Europe. It's a market with a lot of potential. Riyadh Air will serve more than 100 destinations around the world by 2030. That's the promise. Riyadh Air is expected to add $20 billion to Saudi Arabia's non-oil GDP. It will create 200,000 odd jobs, direct and indirect. They've hired aviation industry veteran Tony Douglas to execute the plan. He was previously the head of Etihad Airways. The idea is to get him to replicate the success of Etihad. But here's the irony. Do you know who's funding these big-ticket projects to move the economy away from oil? Saudi Arabia's oil giant Aramco. And it can splurge because Aramco has posted a record profit, a whopping $161 billion, a rise of more than 46% compared to 2021. So Saudi Arabia's mantra is clear. It won't abandon oil, but it won't rely just on oil to fill its coffers. And the plan makes sense. The biggest challenge for the rulers, though, will be the social transition. From a hardline Islamic nation that only sells oil to a kingdom that hosts music concerts and allows women to drive, Saudi Arabia is being liberalized. The dominance of religion is eroding. The latest proof is the list of Ramadan restrictions. Like I said, it won't be an easy transition, but it's a transition that must be made for a young country that has the financial resources and the regional clout to make a difference. Saudi Arabia is just getting started.
তো বন্ধুরা, আমরা এতক্ষণ ভিডিও দেখলাম এবং বিষয়টি জানতে পারলাম, বুঝতে পারলাম। তো এরকম আরো অনেক ভিডিও আমি আপলোড করব ইনশাআল্লাহ। কারণ হচ্ছে আমাদের নিউজ শোনার তো আসলে সময় হয় না, যেগুলো গুরুত্বপূর্ণ নিউজ এগুলোই আমি এখানে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করব। তো এতক্ষণ আমার সাথে থাকার জন্য অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আমার চ্যানেলটি যারা এখনো সাবস্ক্রাইব করেননি তাদের বিশেষভাবে অনুরোধ করব আমার চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব করার জন্য, কারণ আমার পূর্বের চ্যানেলটি সাসপেন্ডেড অবস্থায় আছে। আমি যদিও আপিল করেছি, তবে আমার মনে হয় না যে আপিলে কাজ হবে, কারণ তারা বারবার আমাকে বলছে যে তুমি সিভিয়ার ভায়োলেশন করেছো ইত্যাদি ইত্যাদি। তো যাই হোক, আল্লাহ মালুম। তো এখন আমার সাথে থাকার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আজকের মতো এখানে শেষ করছি। আল্লাহ হাফেজ। বাংলাদেশ জিন্দাবাদ।